Welcome to this week's Eccentric Minute, brought to you by Eccentric. This week's Eccentric Minute is one of my favorite exercises to do with the K-pulley, and that is the pull-through. Guys, once you've figured out about how far you need to walk out with the K-pulley, grab whatever attachment you're using for the pulley, walk yourself out there, and really push your hips back at the K-pulley. From there, when you hit that stretch, really punch your hips forward, keep your chest up, and try to extend your knees and your hips all the way through. And this is where one of the major benefits of using a flywheel kicks in, as it pulls you into a deeper stretch as you push your hips back into your hamstrings and your hip extensors, so that you really open it up and stretch everything out in the back. This is an exercise that I'm sure your athletes are going to love to hate, but reap awesome rewards from. I really hope you enjoyed this week's Eccentric Minute. Make sure you check them out at eccentric.com to find out everything you need about the K-box and the K-pulley. Being a strength and conditioning professional requires constant pursuit of better knowledge, better methods, and better means. But what if there was a place where strength and conditioning coaches could learn from some of the most innovative practitioners in the world, such as Jeff Moyer, Lachlan Wilmot, William Wayland, James the Thinker Smith, and Keir Wenham Flatt? Well, you could find multiple lectures from each of these top-level coaches and a few lectures and examples from yours truly as well, all in the Strength Coach Network. The Strength Coach Network is going to bring you well over 100 different lectures from some of the top practitioners in the world to be your one-stop shop for your continuing education and professional development. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASP today and get your 48-hour trial for only $1. That's strengthcoachnetwork.com/CVASPS to get your 48-hour trial for only $1. I look forward to seeing you in the Strength Coach Network. Don, it's a pleasure to have you back, man. I'm excited to get this down. I'm excited to talk. I think that this is a conversation that coaches need to get more involved in. So I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I wish it were on lighter circumstances, but it's conversations that need to be had. So I'm completely 100% fine having them.
Yeah, and I think too, people like to call these hard conversations. And I said this after the talk I did with the guys. I think that that's step one when it comes to us starting to move forward, is to kind of eliminate these cop-outs when we talk about how, like, well, it's a hard conversation. So people get nervous and they get worried about having them. It's, if you care about the people that you're around and you care about the people that you get to work with, and you care about the people, like us, colleagues in the profession, it's not a hard conversation. It's a conversation that we need to have because we need to be better for each other. So let's have the conversation, man. You've been super active down there in the Black Lives Matter movement since things that have, the two tragic events that happened about a month ago from when this will release. So let's talk about that a little bit, man. Let's talk about what you're doing down there. Let's talk about what these events are like and how things are moving and what you're seeing.
So for me, I think there's so much, so many ways, and we were talking about earlier, I have 29 years of oppression and racism that I just trying to make sure I articulate as well as possible. But when it comes to the movement and everything, the only thing I'm trying to do is keep the things going, and make sure that this isn't just a blimp, or, personally for me, the civil rights movement, awesome. What did they give us? They gave us things they didn't care about, right? That's the way I look at it anyway. And then, other things happen that just continue to oppress us. So for me, it's just making sure that I'm having the conversation, that I'm making sure everyone's aware that these conversations need to be had. If you're not comfortable having them, well, too bad, because I'm going to have them, and giving our athletes, both white and black, a voice. And you know what? If you're not comfortable, let me be your voice. Or if you're upset or something's going on, talk to me about it and give them a path of someone to talk to. But I'm just a small little blimp in this whole thing. I think the movement, like any movement, is bigger than one person. And I'll never pretend to be one person about it. and like I said, it's just a lot of stuff you're trying to digest and you're trying to figure out. Like for me, as far as people not speaking, people not talking, my parents come from a mindset of if the white man, I'm not saying every white person, I'm just telling you what they said. If the white man gives you something, you say thank you, because if you start talking about it, they'll take it away from you. So in talking and protesting, joining these protests, doing what I do on social media, because those are my platforms that I've been giving to be able to use. I have the gift of gab, that. But like my parents, even my father, who we're getting closer, but he's hit me up and said, hey, if they can lynch people in big cities, think what they can do to you. So like it's been a thing where it's been like, hey, don't talk, don't speak. But this is the first time in 29 years of life that I feel comfortable speaking. So I'm going to take this moment and speak, because if I don't, I'm taking the side of the oppressor. I truly believe that. And hopefully me speaking helps other people feel comfortable speaking, because once one person does it, once one person broke the world record for the mile, now everyone's breaking the world record for the mile. And that's kind of how I see myself is, you know what, maybe some coaches are still afraid that if they speak, the white man will take the stuff away from them. Well, I'll speak, and hopefully you have the courage to continue to speak or speak out if you haven't already.
Yeah, and I know that you probably don't want to be told this, but that is exceptionally brave to be able to sit there and say, I'm going to step in front of this and I'm going to say, yo, like, no, like enough is enough. And if you're afraid to be a soundboard, use me as the soundboard, because, you're right. These things aren't about one person, but these things are about one-on-one conversations. And it's about people starting talking with each other and making sure that we understand what's going on. And, this is a unique time period where all of this is evolving around, because what's good relatively with it, is that we're in the middle of this COVID thing. So you can't really hide from what's going on. And I think that this has been different from these other situations because, like we were talking before, like, people talk about 92 and what happened then, but even more recently, right, there's been other instances of situations where law enforcement has probably handled some things pretty incorrectly, and there have been reactions to it, but it hasn't stayed the course. There are still marches, there are still things going on, and what's unfortunate right now is, for some reason, there's also still police officers making mistakes in these situations, which blows my mind.
And for me, and I love the younger generation. I do. And I'm young myself. For me, I think that the older you get, or the younger you are, the further you get away from history, right? So the police force, whatever, there's all that kind of stuff. That's not that is a very small part of the bigger problem. When we look at the system, the whole system is flawed, and we need to start figuring out how to fix that. Not only our part of it, right? Because black people mess themselves up too, but the system isn't designed to help us out. So how do we fix all those things and not focus hate at a certain little part? Because even if we could fix the police force, right, we'd still be oppressed in different ways. I mean, college athletics, I think, is flawed general. Like, everyone thinks everything's escaped from college athletics. I think that's BS. Most of the racism I've encountered in my life has been through college athletics. I'm not saying any place is specific, but that everything that I've seen, everything, when I talk to strength coaches, blah, 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 how they felt oppressed, blah, blah, blah. Strength coaches work for college athletics. Outside of for a long time in my life, I grew up with all kinds of people, right? And my mom used to always say, you have to work twice as hard to get half as far as a Caucasian person. And I was like, nah, Mom, like, I have friends here, have friends there, have friends, like, all races, right? And then as I got older and got out of the bubble of high school, I realized, oh no, like, I ain't, this is what life is going to be like. This is how they're going to treat me. This is no matter how high I climb, I'm still going to be held down because I am black. And I was just talking to someone, I see a lot of white females supporting the movement, and I feel bad because, not bad, but I know I've had conversations with white females, and some of them for the first time are understanding what it's like to be black. So anytime you associate yourself with a black man, you're almost a subhuman in certain ways. They're getting bad remarks thrown at them. They're getting a lot of shade thrown at them. People are coming at their heads about stuff. Like, why is this happening? I say, because now you're part of us. And if you're part of us, then you're just as low as we are in some people's minds. I'm not saying everyone, but just in those instances. So it's I know I'm rambling on. I said there's tons of stuff, 29 years of stuff bottled up, but it's just hard times, man. It's hard times. It's always a hard times, but now we're bringing it to light and pushing it forward. And I think everyone needs to know what it is.
Yeah, and I also think, though, that, like we spoke about before, how did we say this? Not that it's getting better, but it's like almost at that tipping point where things have the opportunity to actually have substantial change. And I think that really, people owe a lot of that to the same kids that we talk about every day, man. These 18 to 22-year-olds that we joke about, we call them knuckleheads, and we got to do all
generation.
This. Yeah, but for real,
I love
man.
This generation is changing the world. And like, as much as we talk about this generation, they're the ones that are being the biggest activists in all this from any race. You know what I mean? And just to put this precaution out there and get this out of the way, people say all lives matter, and that's great. But if you're going to the doctor, right, and your arm is broken, and you go, hey doctor, my arm's broken, will you check it out? They're not gonna be, well, what about the rest of the body? They're gonna look at your broken arm because that's the part that's hurting right now. All lives do matter, but right now we have another broken part of the body that needs a lot of help. And these kids from every single economic background, every single different race, they're really banding together, and it's beautiful to watch, and it's beautiful to see, and that's the beauty that I get to see of college athletics. Of again, it's not about me at the very least. And I'll say this after, but they're coming and supporting, and hey, Coach Day, how can we help? Or Coach Day, do you see this? Coach Day, do you see that? Coach Day, isn't this disgusting? Blah, 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 all kinds of different backgrounds. And for the whole, it's not about me. You say it's courageous or, whatever it was. Like, when it comes to, there's two things about me. All right. One, I'm a man of faith. So, for me, dying is, and no one's coming after me or trying to threaten me, whatever. But to me, it's, well, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I die, I go to heaven. Second thing is, when you speak out, if you've been told your whole life that you got to be quiet or else you're going to get, you're going to lose your job, or you're going to, not that anyone's threatened to take my job away, but bad things will happen to those that speak out against injustice. You get told that by the people that are being oppressed. If you speak out, you just know what it is. So for me, like, if bad stuff started happening, it just is what it is. But I'm not going to not speak out to help someone else. And that doesn't make me a hero, because I'm not, I promise you, I'm not the best person in the world or anything like that. I just believe in what I believe in. I'm about what I say I'm about. And if it can help one of my athletes, if it can help my future kids, if it can help anyone else going through these hard situations, I'm going to do it, because I value the movement more than I value my own life. And I don't know, this isn't like a psychology thing we need to dive into, but I've always been that way. And I always will be that way. And my wife cries at night about it, and I feel bad, but like, it just is how I am. So,
But at the end of the day, right, like, you bring up some great examples and some great points, but when we talk about like coaching the kids is like the individual, and it's each person's their own, and you need to develop these relationships, and you need to be this, that, and the other for them. Why does that not include right now? Why would that not include being there and listening and being better for them right now?
Let me break down my theory on college athletics. All right, and we'll say not every college football, but we'll say like certain college football, and then I'll answer your question. So there's certain places, right, where, and I'm not saying I've experienced these places, I just know, right. So you come in, right, you bulk of your kids are African Americans, and this is a systematic problem, and this is why it's bigger than anything. One of our biggest tools that we can use to help better ourselves and better our people is education, right? That gets you out of the gutter, that gets you out of the hood, that gets you out of what I wasn't the smartest dude in the world, but my education helped uplift me. Education is a strong weapon. College football is a huge moneymaker, right? That we don't pay these kids for. We don't directly pay them for. And so what happens in college football? You take these BS. If I said, hey, this guy is a biomechanical engineer, you'd be like, oh, that's pretty impressive. If I said an African American man was a biomechanical engineer, you'd say that was pretty impressive if he's playing college football. Why? Because they give you these majors that are the simplest majors so that you can provide a service, but that service won't provide for you later. What are you going to do with a communications degree, right? What are you going to do with, and we know how hard it is to get into the NFL and how long your lifespan is in the NFL, right? We know how hard it is to get into coaching and certainly how big of a burnout coaching is. So we have them provide a service for us, but do not service them because I truly believe it's part of the systematic problem of dehumanizing and breaking down black men. Because we're going to take this mass amount of black men, we're going to have them serve us, and we're not going to do anything for them. And I'm not saying that's everywhere, but I mean, look at the numbers. You can look up the numbers, and it's easy to see. But back to your original question about why it's so hard to have these conversations. I think that people are completely ignorant, and I said this in my presentation the other day. If you're a high level coach working with football, most more than likely, just off of the numbers, your players are going to be African Americans, right? So when you look at it this way, you have a nice car, you have a nice house, you have a nice wife, you have a nice home you go to, you have nice clothes, you have nice things, you're provided for, right? But those things that are provided for you is off of the backs of African Americans, right? But you can't speak and you can't say anything. You decide to be neutral, or you wait to see, is it okay for me to speak? Is this the popular thing to do? Blah, 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 blah. And I think it's, I don't want to say it's racism, but it's something. And it's a lot of ignorance too. And I think that some people don't know how to have the conversations because they can't fathom what we go through. I mean, for instance, people, light-skinned people, I've been told my whole life, if, hey, you talk good, you talk proper, you talk good English, you're white, Don. Or why are you so upset, Don? You talk good, like, well, you're pretty much a white man. Like, I'm a white man. Well, the noose up the street tells me that I'm not a white man. Me being afraid to break down in any city in the country road tells me I'm not a white man. So I think but these are okay because, hey, Don, you speak good, you proper, like you're a white guy, you're like one of us. That's okay to say, but what you're really saying when you say those things is white is right and black is wrong and should be arrogant and not arrogant, but ignorant and savages. But white people are educated. So if you talk educated, you're white. To be black, you have to talk dumb. And these are just small little things, micro racisms or whatever you want to call them, that get built up to where people just can't understand saying something. You know what I mean? It's just a systematic thing of honestly how systematic racism works.
I want to touch upon something that you hit on earlier in that, and that is the whole idea of the role of college athletics. And I think that, everything that's ever written it says student athlete, right? But I think that, and we've had this conversation here, and I'd love to hear your thought process on this. I don't know when it happened, but it seems to me at least that even across the board, the biggest problem right now that we have in college sports is that the value of the scholarship has been taken away because many of these big sports are looked at as training grounds for the top level pro teams, as opposed to Don wants to study business. He looks at schools X, Y, and Z to go study business that he can do well in, he can get in, and they offer him a football scholarship. I don't know when that happened or how that happened, but at some time, the value that's provided by the education was pushed aside for people trying to just play, like at the best school possible or the best program possible or the chance to play at the next level possible.
I mean, obviously, money, right? Money plays a big, money plays the biggest role in that stuff, right? So if you, some of this is a lot of hypothesis, but I would feel comfortable backing this up. At some point in time, the system decided, hey, you know what? We get these athletes in here. People kind of like watching more people score points. They're more dynamic. It makes it more dynamic. Not that white people aren't dynamic. I'm not saying that at all. There's a lot of great white athletes, but let's make it a little bit more dynamic, right? Let's switch it up a little bit. And now people fill more seats. People want to watch these things. People start paying more money, right? Now you start making more money. So the cost of the scholarship does not matter that much as the cost of the ticket or the cost of the jersey sales, because we'll make more off of, or the cost of the education, right? Because now you take education takes a back seat. And I'm not saying what schools where, or this is every school, but this is some, right? And it's enough. So education starts to take a back seat to the profit that you're bringing in. And let's give them, if the education is cheap, then we make more profit, right? And you start cheating these kids and cheating these athletes. And I think that when you start recruiting these kids from downtrodden areas, whatever, that might not know better, right? Might not know going to college is huge for some people, right? So going to college is like you've made it. You become the president of the United States, all right? I think that's a shame that you don't say, listen, going to college isn't enough. Like, don't just like mattering isn't enough. Like I've been saying, Black lives can't just matter. Like being recognized as mattering is the bare minimum. We need to thrive for more. And I think in my head that it's not just a system issue. It's an imagery issue. I was watching a video from 1970s. All right, and I'll break this. It's very in depth. I'll break this all down. And I'm a huge follower of the Black Panthers and everything they've done. There are some rumors in the Black Panthers. I think there's rumors. I think they were trying to be broken down by the government. So I just stick with the things that I know they did positively, right? Just like any organization, there's some good eggs, there's some bad eggs, But anyway, so it was Huey Newton. There was two doctors. Huey Newton's the leader of the Black Panthers. There was two doctors. They were on a 1970s talk show with these white hosts. And the host was like, how do we change things for kind of like what we're talking about right now? How do we change things? How do we make things better for African Americans? And you got to remember, this is like the middle of the civil rights movement, right? Not too long after. So one of the doctors talked about the issues of imagery, right? The imagery of a Black man. It's just a systematic way of breaking him down. And I'll take this back to the beginning. So originally, Black people weren't allowed to be in movies, right? That's why they did blackface and had white people dressed up, certain white people dressed up as, Black men. One of the most popular movies, I can't remember but what it was, but at the time, it was a man in blackface, and it was a hugely, hugely successful movie. The white man dressed up as a Black guy in blackface was a criminal, right? And it's just it's degrading. But a lot of white actors that did blackface at the beginning, they were not showing them as heroes. They were either servants, they were criminals, they were jailbirds, they were whatever they were. So you're just constantly pumping this imagery of a black man is bad. Just like when you say, Don, not you, but when people say, Don, you speak proper, so you're white. So that separates white and black. And people don't just say that to me, they say it all the time. Black has to act ignorant. Black has to do this. Black has to do that. This is the images that we start to see, right? If you don't talk a certain way or act a certain way, you're a sellout. You're white. That's not true, and we do that to ourselves sometimes. But we pump these negative images of African Americans out there, and then expect us to think that we would reach for anything more than, hey, we just went to college. The image is that black people go to jail all the time, right? So if we just go to college and take some BS degree, then we've got it. We've made it. But that's not it. That's not it. We have to educate the young brothers and sisters out there to want to be more than the images that have been pumped in their head. And imagery is a very powerful tool that you can either use to uplift or oppress. And I think that the images in this country, any strong black leader, they've been killed. You know what I mean? Huey Newton, killed. Malcolm X, killed. Martin Luther King, killed. You can say, for whatever, every way you look at Tupac did support black people. And he did try to push things forward positively in his own way. He was 25 years old, so give him a little bit of a break. But killed, right? The images that you see right now, why do you think they keep showing black men being killed and slaughtered? Yes, part of it, I do believe, is to spread the information. Part of it, I think, is a desensitization. And when you wake up every morning, I know when I wake up every morning and I see on Twitter another black man died, another person that looked like me died, it devalues my own life. But I have to sort out through that, and I'm old enough and I'm wise enough to know, no, I'm not here to go to the slaughter, right? I'm not here to die, right? But even in look at images in movies or images on TV shows. Who's the gangster, right? Who in mafia movies? Mafia movies are about smart white men, right? But gangster movies, those dudes are ignorant. They're selling crack. They're doing whatever. Just look at it. It's a systematic problem, and we have to be better. We can't bring kids in, give them these bullshit scholarships in communications or undecided or art. I don't know. Not that they're bad majors or whatever, but we have to educate them to want to be better, and we have to invest in them being better.
And I'm drawing a blank on that movie, but it was in 13th too, where they were talking about the convict and how it was like he was a savage and like I might be off with this, but like he like in the movie like rapes and kills somebody and something like that. And yeah.
A white woman. Mm-hmm. And then so like look at this too. All right. And this is very real. All right. I'm gonna put this out here right now. You look at images. This is how strong images are, right? If black people are bad, if black people are ignorant, if black people are whatever the images show, right? And you say, that's just, it's a movie, it's this, it's that. All right. So then when a white woman dates or marries a black man, why do they immediately get devalued, right? I know white women that have been told you can't date, if you date a black man, white men will no longer find you attractive. And that's a generalization, but that's what their parents told them, right? My wife has been told, I didn't know you were into that sort of thing. I didn't know you were into that kind of thing. We never expect you to be with a black man because we didn't know you were into that kind of thing. Like I'm a, weird kink, right? Like, we didn't know you were into that kind of thing or whatever it might be. But, again, the images of us being savages, the images of us, if the blackface and the convict raping the white woman, if you don't think King Kong was a metaphor, come on. It's just those images can mess you up so bad, or it's just a form of brainwashing. I'm not sitting there saying like the old school, like the swirly lines, like I'm saying, like way more subliminally way of brainwash. And again, anytime a white woman is with a black man, that white woman gets immediately devalued, and not by everyone, but there are a lot of people that do, sometimes their own family. Now, my wife, her family 100% supports me, but I have been in instances where I've been told I wasn't good enough because I was a black man, or I've been told, my dreams were not good enough because I was a black man, and they should be with someone that has higher aspirations as far as, whatever. Or, I remember sitting down with a certain family, and when I was in college, and I'll never forget, they said, Uncle Beer Can would never approve of Don. They had an Uncle Beer Can, so you could imagine, yeah, that kind, yeah. So that's what I was dating at the time. But it's sad, and like some people, they think that's why I say it's not just about the police. The police never sat me down and said, "You're not good enough for our daughter because you're black." You know what I mean? Police never did that to me. Police, police never hung a noose down the street that I jog on all the time. You know what I mean? Police didn't do that. Police didn't kill Aubrey. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a part of a systematic problem. And I think that us coming together, no matter what race, like I said, your arm's broke, we need to fix the arm. We are broken. And we need to all come together to help fix that part of the body, because people want to look at black on black crime, they want to do this and that, like this and that. Well, if you systematically oppress a race of people for hundreds of years, you give them nothing, you take their opportunities of being able to provide. What are they going to turn into? They're going to provide any way they can. I'm not excusing drug dealers or anything like that, but you can see how that stuff can come about. You can see how that stuff gets set up. I just think that we are so broken from years of slavery and years of oppression that we need help any way we can get it.
Well, and I think, though, going back to the education thing, I think that the two public services, if we may, that seem to be the most downtrodden when it comes to adding to these problems are that and the education system, and the fact of how both of these systems, if you look at it, have been set up to hamstring one and help push forward another. Like I don't know how to fix that. Like the idea of how the system of education is basically reliant upon your property taxes is almost the most blatant caste system in the history of mankind.
Yeah, it's I don't know how you fix it. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. You know what I mean? Like I just see some of the problems. I have a few solutions for some of the problems I can affect, and I can just scream as loud as possible and hope that the right person hears my voice and we can get things fixed. And again, like I know like people are angry. I know like, all of us are angry at certain, and it's hard sometimes because I have a lot of, my grandma's from Germany. You know what I mean? My grandma's white. My wife is white. I have white friends. I have, a lot of white people have helped me out in this industry. A lot. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously the industry of coaching, right? But you get so angry, you know what I mean? And you just like, you feel like, for me, I've felt some type of way, and I don't know how to like to express my opinions or express my voice without, I don't know, it's just been a complete cloud in my head of I don't want to be angry at white people because they're not the problem. There's certain people that are the problem. It's a constant struggle, honestly. Like, I love white people. I do. I love all people. There's not one person or one type or one religion, one sexuality, one anything that I have a problem with unless you're a prick. You know what I mean? But besides, like, it's just I don't know how to fix these problems without all of us coming together. And we have to realize that we have a broken arm and we need to fix that arm. And it might take some time. It might be 6 to 8 weeks in a cast. But you know what? We got to figure it out. We can't just walk around living with our arm broke. Like, it's not good enough. It's not, it never was, and it never will be. And we just got to keep fighting, like, keep fighting every single day.
Yeah, and I think Don, to kind of tie back into some things that you brought up earlier, and it was like the idea of people being afraid of what to say and how to say it and all those things. And I 100%, that was me, man, like 100%. And then, again, dude, every time we talk, I talk about how awesome my guys are. And, getting to sit down and talk with three of these young men who are really active right now with everything going on and really being told, like, called out for it, I mean, I think that that's what's important too, is to understand that if you're in a group where you're willing to be critiqued by these young people and you're willing for them to talk about how you coach them or how you program for them, like, these other things shouldn't be a problem. But to hear him say, like, nah, man, like, the emotion's important. Like, when you're angry, like, people need to know. And to hear them be like, like, when you're angry, that's when you need to reach out to people, or like to put something or to say something and to do something, because things don't always happen with sunshine and rainbows, like, it just isn't that way. And I think part of that, as we talk about this coaching profession, so many of us are so afraid of losing our jobs, right? For whatever reason, if we come off too emotional or too brash or too whatever, because of whatever, because you said the wrong thing that maybe isn't PC enough on that day, and someone complains or whatever, right? Like, we all worry about that. But to hear them tell me that has really changed how I've been. There have been 3 or 4 times in the past week or two. I mean, shoot, just, what was it, Friday or Saturday? It was like, I was mad. So I hit you up. I'm like, dude, we got to talk. Like, there's some things like that we need to sit down and talk about to be better. And I think, again, I pump these kids up so much. Like, people shouldn't be thinking that, like, they're paying me, but I mean, they kind of are. But and they make me better, and they're making me better by holding me accountable to doing these things, and that's important. Like, if you are upset, don't just sit there and, like, pretend you're going to do something on Twitter and then not do it. Like, I mean, like, Jacob said flat out, like, he named one of my friends that he knows. He's like, you know what you should be doing? You should be calling him. Like, you should be calling these guys. Like, call your friends, call your colleagues, call the people that you know that, like, let them know you're mad too. Be mad with them and find out ways you can help. Because I think that, like, if we're all sitting here and we're all scared to say the wrong thing, we're never going to know what the right thing is to say.
Yeah, you're just paralyzed by inaction, and like I said, that's what oppressors want you to do. Don't take their side. You don't have to take my side. Just stay silent, and we'll handle this, right? I mean, for me, it's very simple. Like, if I'm, if like I think about this quote a lot, by Huey P. Newton. The life of a revolutionary is a doomed one. I'm not trying to blow myself up at all. This is just my mindset, because it's not like I'm not that big. But anyway, this is way bigger than me. But, like, for me, like, if I'm not afraid to lose my life for this movement, then, like, what's my job? You know what I mean? At that level of things, like, and that's honestly how I think. I'm like, you know what? People get pissed off, the wrong person, whoever hung that noose up could break in my house, kill me. But, like, if anything, that might start something good. You know what I mean? That might start a trend, or, not a trend, but like a movement that might add to the movement. But for me, like, I think and I feel for, I had a hard problem with people that weren't speaking up. You know what I mean? And Candace Walls really helped me out with that. Like, however your platform is, use it. You know what I mean? Some people might not be on social media. I am. I happen to be on social media. I have access to you calling me about doing this podcast. You know, and however this is my platform. You know what I mean? This is my platform to use. Not everyone has this platform. Some people might be calling their friends behind the scenes. Some people, whatever your platform is, you owe it to not just, it's you owe it to the human race to bring everyone together. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, we don't want to be separate. You know what I mean? We want to be together. But right now we're broken. So we got to fix each other, and then so we can get into the fold of things again. You know what I mean? I think that I don't know. I think that it's a hard conversation, I guess, for certain people. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what to say, then at least listen. You know what I mean? And let yourself become educated so that you can help out. You know, like for example, completely unrelated to race. All right, I had someone tell me about a certain lifestyle thing that was completely completely opposite, out of the realm of where my lifestyle is, right? But I listened, and listening helped them out tremendously. And there were some things like we could talk about, I could talk about from my perspective of my struggles and help them with their struggles, because there is some common ground in everything. We're humans, right? So there is going to be common ground. I'm not a Martian and they're not an Earthling, you know what I mean? So there is common ground on any topic. So their thing that they were struggling with, or that they had experienced or are experiencing, whatever, we could talk about and I could help out with, even though it's a completely different realm of where I live, right? So I think when it comes to the race issue, for a Caucasian male, they might be in a completely different realm than where I'm living, right? But they can at least listen. And then maybe we can find common ground. But it starts with conversation. You can't find common ground if you don't have conversation.
No, and I think too that, like, to piggyback that, there are more and more people that are more and more willing to allow for their platforms to be there for that. Because, for some people, myself included, it really might be the best thing that you have to offer.
Yeah. I mean, just talking, to people, it helps too. You know what I mean? It's like you got all these suppressed. I will use myself on this one. All right. So, my grandma is white. I have a lot of white friends. I have a white wife, right? A white lady is the reason that I am in the position I am in, and has literally changed my life, has changed my entire life because of giving me this position. So when all these things, these images of white people killing black people are starting to pop up on my Twitter every time I get on Twitter, every single morning, right? I wake up, check my social media, another person getting killed by a police officer. My anger doesn't go for the police, it goes more general, right? And then I have to be like, no, I don't feel like I shouldn't feel that way. Why am I feeling this way? Like you're very upset, you're just very upset and distraught and all that kind of stuff, right? But like people, I've been able to reach out to people and they have listened to me and they've offered their, like, not condolences, but their ears. They've offered, hey Don, like, we love you, like, what can we do, like, just letting me vent, you know what I mean, like freely and openly. And I think, I don't want to sound like I'm a third white too, so I'm not like racist against white people, but it hurts, right? You're hurt. You're just hurt. You're like, how could this happen? And then you also think, like, am I not worth anything? That I can just get killed out on the street? Am I not worth anything? That if I jog by one place one day, I'm going to see a noose the next day? Am I, like, what? Am I devalued as a human being? So you're conflicted with, well, like, these people are killing me, and these people are saying I'm not worth anything. So where do I fit in this world? But thankfully, I have people that let me talk and listen to me and help consult me and console me on these instances. And I think that's the exact same way for people that don't know how to have these conversations with their African American colleagues or whatever it is. Sometimes it's just letting them vent and listen, and not getting upset with what they might say, or not getting personal about what they might say, or the worst thing I've seen so far, besides whatever, me personally, we were in Savannah the other day, and I thought it was important. My cousin was in town, so I took him to Savannah, and there was a protest. We were on this trolley, and he's mixed too, but his parents are more Caucasian. Both my parents are black. His mom is mixed and his dad is Caucasian, so he looks more Caucasian. So he doesn't. I've realized he hasn't gone through it to the amount of depth that I might have. And me and him after having conversations with him, because he can kind of camouflage himself, except for when his hair grows out, you can tell. But so me and him, that's probably why he keeps it short. But anyway, so there was a rally, not a protest. Donald Trump has rallies, but there was a protest, a peaceful protest going on, and me and him were on a trolley tour, and they're like, "Yeah, we got to turn the trolley around, peaceful protest." I was like, "Hey, let's go to this protest, like impromptu protest. Like, you need to see this." So we're at the protest, and I'm standing with them and all that stuff, and then a man, and we're down in Savannah, and there's like a lot of art people down in Savannah, so SCAD was putting on the protest, and art people, they're not the biggest people in the world. So a man approaches, and I'm right where he is. A white man approaches, and he goes, "All lives matter. All lives matter." And my cousin looks to me, and he goes, "You're going to have to be the one that fights this guy." I go, "Oh, shoot." Thankfully, the police stepped in, and I didn't have to fight the man, because he didn't, it never got to that point of physicality with anyone in the crowd. But had it, I would have had to. I was the biggest guy there. Like, there was not even close. But anyway, and I'm not advocating violence. I'm saying if someone starts violence, you can't let that happen. But I don't want to see anyone get hurt. So anyway, it was important for him to see that, and it was important for him to kind of notice that kind of stuff, but also see the response to these kind of things too. I mean, unfortunately, the news, my cousin was out there with me. He's like, this stuff, like, he's the one that saw it first, because I jog past the house all the time, and I've never seen the news, and it's never been there. So I'm just jogging normal, talking to my cousin, whatever, and not thinking that there's going to be a noose out there. And he goes, "Hey, you see that?" I was like, "Here we go." And he's like, "Do they know you live here?" I was like, "I've walked past this house 100 times during the coronavirus, so they probably know I live around here now." But like, I don't know. I just think you got to have those conversations. And I know I'm so far off from the question and the point you had asked, but like, I just, you got to have those conversations with people. You got to start those conversations. You got to talk to them in depth. And Huey Newton said, less politically, as I'm going to put it now. I think a big problem is you have to, as a Caucasian, you have to look at what influences have caused me to think a certain way, and how do I encounter my own stereotypes or my own prejudices? Which ones do I have? So I have to admit that I have some. We all do. I'm not perfect. We all have prejudices, right? And then we have to figure out how we encounter them, fight them, talk with people, how to solve them, and have those conversations. I just think it's so important that we have conversations, because there can be no deeper meaning, no dialogue, no progress without conversations. And you have to have them. You have to have them.
Yes, 100%. Like, implicit bias is a real thing, and it's probably something that's never going to change, just because of how people are wired.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that you can't do this. It doesn't mean that, like, what was the old In Living Color skit? Like, can't we all just get along? Like, it doesn't mean that you can't. right? And I think that, you've brought up that cowardly display like that your neighbor has, and we talked about Bubba earlier and all of that. And I think that, again, like, kind of what we started talking about a little before is when these people go to these extreme situations and do these things, it's because they're starting to realize that maybe their time's come and their backs against the wall, because people, all sorts of people, everybody, there are so many different aspects of this. I'm sure not all of them, but there are so many different aspects on all of this that people are like, what? No, this has got it. All right, we got to fix some things. And there are some people that might just be a little fat and happy with what's going on. And I think that, like we talked about before, obviously it's not good. But to see that there's some fear in these people, because, again, we're at that tipping point of change, means that we need to do more of this. And I'm really glad that we were able to, like, you and I especially, are able to just be like, how you doing?
Yeah.
I'm not good. All right, give me 10. I'll call you. That's important, man. And like, it can't just be because we're in quarantine and who knows what this COVID thing is going to do, and that it's all fresh in our minds, and because people are still putting hashtags and Instagram stories out. Like, human decency needs to be human decency.
110%. And you have to have, like, when you see injustice, you got to call it out. Like, I got a text message right before we got on together, like, hey, this is going to the mayor's office, just so you know. And like, I was like, yeah. But like before, when someone had hit me up the other night, I put it on Instagram so people could see, like, this is still out here. Be careful. Like, be careful. They someone had texted me and like, hey, do you want me to talk to the mayor? I'm close with him. And I was like, almost from that mindset of, I'd say the old slave mindset that unfortunately I think older generations of black people have. No, don't upset the white man. Like, don't upset him, or bad stuff will happen. I was like, no, like, we speak out, like we speak out against injustice. You have to speak out against injustice. Or what I will talk about, I don't know much depth on it, but I know Metal had response to Black Lives Matter, and from what I've heard, it wasn't a very positive one. I haven't seen it yet. So, as soon as Elite FTS took the stand of we will not sell any more Metal Gear, I threw out my briefs. Like, I would rather have a little crappy, squat than add 200 pounds on my squat with my briefs. Like, it's not it. Me being able to sleep at night and the moving forward are the most important things. So again, when it comes to my parents' pleas, or whatever, the noose, I don't know if that was a direct threat or not. I have no idea. I'd like to think it wasn't. I'd like to think that maybe like the kids were just play. I don't know. I don't know. I can't operate in that mindset, so I hope it wasn't as serious as I think it was, or it could be. But again, I haven't seen it if the shoe fits. Whatever it might be, my parents thinking that I'm going to lose my job, which I am no way, shape, or form been informed or threatened or anything like that. I will not lose my job because they could never replace someone for how cheap I get paid. So like, those things, you got to speak out. You can't be afraid of those things. You can't fear those things, because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, the movement is way bigger than one person. I do believe one person can change the entire course of the world, because at one point in time, Martin Luther King was one person. Huey P. Newton was one person. Malcolm X was one person. Gandhi was one person at some point in time. And I do believe one person can change the world, like I said earlier, but one person isn't the whole movement, right? And when you can kill a revolutionary, you can silence a revolutionary, but you can't stop an idea and you can't stop the revolution. So I do think that I am hopeful now that athletes are protesting about playing in states with Confederate flags, which people said, I think we talked about before, maybe before the talk started, but the Confederate flag is a treasonous flag. They lost the war. They're second place, right? Why are we celebrating that? And it makes no sense to me. Like, I saw a quote the other day, Satan is a big part of Christian history. But if you put up statues of Satan everywhere, you might wonder, do they worship Satan? Right? You don't see statues of Satan all over the churches, right? Because if you did, you'd be like, am I the Holy Baptist Church, or am I in the Church of Satan? But you gotta keep fighting, man. You gotta you see how far this thing has gone, and this is the first time that I've been hopeful. The civil rights movement, I learned about in school, but it was just something on the pages, 4 through 10 in American history. It was there and it was gone. This, I think, is going to be something that continues to build and continues to grow. I think now that, athletes and different people are getting involved in it. I think now that they're taking down those Confederate statues, I think now that the NCAA for once stepped up and did the right thing, and said they're not going to play postseason games in states that highly favor the Confederate flag, that's going to force people to change. And, to me, it's just, you can say heritage, but at the end of the day, these dudes were slave owners. They killed black people for no other reason than they were black. They enslaved black people for no other reason than the fact they were black. Some of them were so passionate about the cause that they stopped being slave owners and took up guns and arms so they could keep their slaves, right? Some of the people that we named military forts after down here. But, why would you want that as part of your history? I wouldn't. I don't want that as part of my history. I wouldn't, if I just don't. I wouldn't wear a flag that supported that. So to me, it's either learned racism or ignorance that they don't understand the true depth of what the Confederate flag actually means. I mean, hell, I remember one time seeing a poster for Confederate Month, a billboard for Confederate Month down here. I was like, oh. I mean, from that moment on, I've been on alert, even way before this movement started happening.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for being on, Don. I'm really glad we got to do this. And I'm glad that I know that you've got my back, and you're supporting me too when it comes to all these things, because I know there's a lot on your plate, and I know that things are you're really in the middle of it all. But to be willing to sit and talk a few times about all this before we even got to this point, we got it down. It means a lot, man, and I'm truly grateful for it and for you and for taking the time, man. This is great. Thanks.
At any time, and I truly appreciate you. And I truly appreciate you supporting the movement and continuing to spread knowledge and helping out, because there are a lot of coaches in high places that have high platforms that just check the box or just say their little I'm not a racist check, whatever it might be. But for you to have me on and let me speak freely, and openly, and I'm not the most politically correct person in the world, so I just speak it through how it is. I really appreciate you doing that for me and for the movement and for everyone.
Thanks, my man. We'll be in touch soon, bud.
All right.